What if I told you that most exercise programs for seniors don't actually address the root causes of aging? Things like resistance bands, machine circuits, aqua aerobics. While these are certainly better than doing nothing at all, they are not the ideal form of exercise for someone who wants to age well. I tell my patients and clients the same thing. Even after the age of 55, you can still be strong, mobile, lean, and fit, but you have to train differently than you did when you were 25, and you can't train like you're already 105. You need the right form of exercise for you at the age that you're at. So in today's video, we're gonna talk about the 10 most common exercise mistakes that I see seniors make and what to do instead. Stay tuned. Number one is not prioritizing strength training. Muscle is the organ of longevity for seniors. In fact, there was a Chilean study that looked at muscle mass in seniors around the age of 74, and what they found was that those in the highest quartile, who had the most fat-free mass in their limbs, had a 20% chance of dying in the next 10 years, compared to those in the lowest quartile, those with the least amount of muscle, they had a 50% chance of dying in the next 10 years. So muscle literally will increase your chances of living longer. Between the ages of 30 and 80 years old, the average adult will lose 40% of their muscle mass. Now, what's even more scary is that most of it comes from a specific type of muscle fiber. That is type 2 muscle fiber. We have type 1 responsible for postural support, endurance, exercise, etc. And type 2, our fast twitch muscle, responsible for helping us get up off the ground, lift heavy things overhead, and catch ourselves quickly if we were to lose our balance. We lose that at twice the rate of type 1. The only thing that maintains type 2 muscle fiber with age is resistance training. Specifically, the research shows heavy resistance training. A research study that looked at over 100,000 participants found that strength training just twice a week lowered mortality risk by up to 30%. And strength training 3 times a week appears to be the ideal number of sessions to maximize risk reduction. So instead of avoiding strength training, aim to lift 3 times a week, utilizing heavy weights as often as possible and as long as it's safe. Mistake number 2 is not training hard enough. Now, chair exercises, aqua aerobics, and machine circuits are certainly better than doing nothing at all, but they're not enough to ward off the effects of aging long term. There was a fascinating research study that looked at older adults who underwent a resistance training program or nothing at all. In the resistance training group, they split participants in half. One group did heavy resistance training and the other group did moderate resistance training. They compared those two over the course of a year to a control group that did no formal exercise. As you would expect, both the moderate and the heavy resistance training group increased their strength. But even 4 years after the study was done, the heavy resistance training group still showed an increased level of strength compared to the moderate or the control group. Thus, we can infer that heavy resistance training drives an impact long-term, even when you're not doing the training anymore. To make sure you're doing this safely and effectively, it's best to find a coach to make sure your form looks good and that your progression is appropriate for someone your age. Mistake number 3 is doing too much moderately high-intensity cardio. We call this the black hole trap. If you take the number 220 and subtract your age from it, you'll get the threshold at which theoretically your body enters the black hole. So if you're 60 years old, 220 minus 60 is 160. So you know that any heart rate above 160 is probably gonna put you in the range where you're beginning to stress your body at a really high level. Now, for most people, they can actually maintain that heart rate, especially if they're fit, for quite a long time. And this promotes elevated cortisol levels. It puts extra stress and wear and tear on the body and makes it difficult to recover and be an efficient fat burner. Thus, people are often left overly fatigued and not as healthy as they want to be long term. So think of somebody who's training for a marathon or training for some sort of cycling event. These are the people that probably do their training chronically in the black hole. Now, somebody who's walking or hiking, doing more low-level activities, they're probably less likely to be in the black hole. To know for sure, you want to get yourself a heart rate monitor, use that simple 220 minus the age equation, and make sure the bulk of your cardio training is done below the black hole threshold. Now, if during interval training or say strength training, your heart rate goes above that zone, that's totally fine. In fact, it's a good thing to stress your body like that. We need stress, but too much stress, any type of stress, can be detrimental. And this sort of moderately high intensity aerobic stress for long periods of time appears to be detrimental to human beings. So you want to make sure that no more than about 10% of your weekly aerobic training is done in this black hole zone. So if you exercise aerobically for 150 minutes per week, to use the recommended number, no more than 15 of those minutes should be above that black hole threshold. So those could be your interval minutes. They could be when you strength train and you just finish that really heavy set of squats and your heart rate's through the roof. But most of your cardio exercise should be at a moderate high level. Number 4 is neglecting low-level movement like walking. Last year, our entire staff participated in a walking challenge. It was 1 month. We split up into these teams, and it was the average of each person on the team's total number of steps taken across the course of the month. And boy, did things get competitive.
I'm just sneaking out of the house here. Nicole doesn't know that I'm leaving. I'm going on a walk. And there she is. Gotta go. Where's she going? Oh no! I don't have my shoes on. Stop, leave me alone. I have to get steps without you.
No,
I have to get steps without you.
I walked an average of 20,000 steps per day over the course of that month. And I found that I felt way better. I was sleeping better. I even had more energy during the day. I could think clearer. And the only thing that really changed in my routine was a high level of steps throughout the day. Seniors that walk the least have an increased risk of falls, lower bone density, and a higher mortality risk compared to those who walk more. 4,000 steps per day appears to be the minimum threshold that you need to walk to reduce early death. Those who walk more than 7,000 steps per day are 50 to 70% less likely to die from all causes compared to those who walk less than 7,000 steps per day. And 10,000 steps per day appears to be the magic ideal number of steps for seniors to take. It seems that there are diminishing returns beyond that number of steps. So aim for 10,000 steps per day. It's an easy number to remember and it'll help your health a lot. We can also look to practical examples of this, like the blue zones. These are areas of the world that have a high number of people that live past the age of 100. What researchers have found, amongst other things, is that these folks move a lot. And they don't do any formal exercise, but they're walking up and down hills, going to the market, going to work. They're walking down to the docks to go fishing. They just move all day long. And compare that to the typical American who sits while they eat breakfast. They sit in their car on the way to work or to their activities. They sit at work or at their activities. They sit at lunch. And then even most Americans, when they go to the gym, they sit. They sit on machines, they sit on benches, they sit on recumbent bicycles. We are a society obsessed with sitting. We need to become a society obsessed with low-level movements like walking. So my recommendation for you is to get more steps per day than you're getting now. If you're walking 2,000-3,000 steps a day, I don't recommend jumping straight up to 10. That's a recipe for plantar fasciitis and overuse injuries, but slowly begin to titrate your steps up over the course of the next couple months and hit 10,000 per day soon. And if you feel like your legs simply aren't strong enough for walking or you want to walk better, check out our walking video that talks about the single best exercise to help you walk better. Mistake number 5 is choosing isolated movements or machines instead of compound full body exercises. Seniors have limited time to spend in the gym, so you don't want to waste that precious time doing things like bicep curls, leg extensions that isolate specific muscles within your body. Our bodies don't know muscles, they know movements. You want to focus your training on movement patterns as opposed to muscles. Think squats, deadlifts, overhead presses, things that use multiple muscle groups in functional movements for a human being. A deadlift, picking something up off the floor, that's something you want to be able to do for your entire life. A squat, being able to get up and down out of a chair, that's something you want to be able to do your entire life. An overhead press, being able to lift the suitcase into the overhead bin or lift a grandchild up overhead, that's something you want to be able to do for your entire life. These are the movements that you want to have in place in your life, and those bigger movements also increase calorie burn and increase the stimulation and release of key hormones in the muscle building and longevity process within the body. So base your training around big movements that use multiple muscle groups and multiple joints within the body. Think squats, deadlifts, overhead presses, push-ups, pull-ups, etc. This is the exact way that we've trained thousands of clients in our brick and mortar locations here in Southern California, and it's helped them to build strength, endurance, balance, and mobility, and really maximize their health long term. Mistake number 6 is using poor form. Now, I often see this in men or folks that are a little bit more uncoordinated, but they lift either more weight than they should, or they just lift with terrible form, and they're way more likely to get injured when they do this. Think the knees caving in during squats, the back rounding during a deadlift, or just moving too fast through a range of motion to the point where you can't control it. These are all common mistakes I see from seniors that lead to them getting injured and that wreck their strength progress. Now, it's difficult to know if your form is on point yourself unless you're a movement expert or you're obsessed about watching videos on how to strength train correctly. So I'd recommend going and getting yourself an in-person coach or somebody online who will watch your form, give you feedback, and make sure you're doing this thing safely. Your strength training journey is simply too important to not do it correctly and dial in your form. Mistake number 7 is neglecting progressive overload. I see seniors make one of 2 mistakes in this category. Either number 1, they never increase their weight or don't increase it very often, or number 2, they increase too rapidly. Let's talk about the first group, the person who doesn't increase the resistance or load quickly enough or doesn't increase at all. Think of somebody doing a barbell back squat and they just do it with the bar for years on end. Now, initially that stress is sufficient to elicit adaptation, meaning it'll drive change within your body. But over time, fairly quickly, the body is going to adapt and get used to that stress, and it's no longer going to be sufficient to get you stronger. And the goal of strength training should be to get you stronger. So it needs to progressively get harder. Now, it doesn't need to be way harder. You don't need to go up by 10 pounds every single workout. You can go up by 1 pound or even a half pound, and you're still gonna be able to drive progress over time. So my encouragement to that person is to add a little bit of weight in your next workout. Make it the smallest increment possible given the weights you have in your gym. If your gym doesn't have small enough weights, you can buy a set of change plates. These are the ones that we use in our gym here. They're very cheap on Amazon. I'd highly recommend them. The second person is the one who progresses too quickly. Now, we see this often in men who played sports in high school or college. They want to do the same weight that they did 40 years ago today. 2-3 workouts into their time with us at Village, they're already squatting 150 pounds. And we have to stop them and shake them and say, you can't do this. You're gonna hurt yourself. It's not worth it. Like, put your ego aside and progressively increase. So now we tell them, here's your starting weight. For most people, it's somewhere between 15 and 35 pounds for an exercise like a squat. We tell them that they can only go up by 10 or by 5 pounds per workout, and this helps them to progress safely. So my practical recommendation for this group, don't go up by more than 5 to 10 pounds per workout. And once you get to the point where you can't do all of the repetitions with good form, good coordination, and no pain, back off a little bit. Your body will thank you. Mistake number 8 is inconsistency in training. I've had clients before who are really consistent for a couple weeks and then they just fall off the face of the earth for the next few weeks, and they come back and they want to pick up right where they left off. But the reality is when you take a couple weeks off every month, you're not going to make significant progress in the long term. Your body, especially with strength training, needs a consistent stress so that it knows what to do with that stress, so the stress isn't too much for your body, and so that you get stronger over time. Commit to training 3 days per week or 36 days over the course of every 12 weeks. Now, if you miss a week, I still recommend getting an extra training session on the front and the back end if possible, to make sure that you're really consistent over the long term. James Clear has a great phrase, which is never miss twice. Even if you miss a workout because you're not feeling well or something came up in your schedule, commit to the idea that you're never gonna miss 2 workouts in a row. And over the course of the year, you'll be likely to be on track most of the time. Number 9 is not measuring or tracking progress. Seniors that don't use some sort of workout journal are way less likely to be consistent in their weights and to make progress than those who do. We use a journal that looks just like this in all of our training with our clients, and our clients have great results, I think in large part because they're tracking every single workout. You wanna make sure you're tracking getting stronger, and seeing your numbers go up will prove to you that you're getting stronger. Now, you don't need some fancy journal like the one we use with our clients. You can use a journal just like I have here, which is really simply just me writing the name of the exercise I did on the date and the weight and reps for the workout, and then any notes that I wanted to write to myself. Like one day I was like, oh, that didn't feel good today. And then I remembered, I was like, oh, I'm gonna drop down the weight on the next workout. Folks can't remember what they ate yesterday. They certainly can't remember how much weight they squatted last week. So we need a log of that to make sure that you're doing a safe and effective resistance and weight for every single workout going forward. Number 10, and the final one, is not having a goal to work towards. I see far too many seniors aimlessly exercising when they should be training towards a specific goal. Now, that goal doesn't need to be some sort of competition or event that you're working towards, like a 5K or a Spartan race that you're training and working towards, or maybe it's an actual lifting competition that you're preparing your body for. It might even be just training to hit some certain very specific numbers on your strength. It could be a trip that you're taking and you want to be really fit and strong for it. In our programs, we have 12 exercises that we go through. We call them the movement standards. And for all 12, we have 3 different levels of achievement for our clients. A stepping stone, the milestone, and then ultimately we want them to hit the standard, which if they're able to hit the standard on all 12 of our movements, we consider them to be in the top 1% of healthy people their age. Now, whatever that goal is for you, write it down. Put it in that workout journal that we talked about so that it stares at you in the face every single day. It'll motivate you even on the days when you don't feel motivated. Now, if you can avoid these 10 common mistakes that we see seniors make with exercise, you're gonna set yourself up for success in terms of building a strong, lean, healthy, and fit body. Now, if you want more tips just like this to learn how to be the healthiest, strongest senior possible, like and subscribe to the channel. We put out content just like this. Until next time, I'm Dr. Matt Klingler, physical therapist obsessed with helping seniors to build strength for life. We'll see you next time.